Okay, we'd like to welcome everybody here. We last week had troubles technically, and it didn't get recorded, and we cut off, and so I'm partly going to start again from last week, but I'm also going to skip the first 5 slides last week were other examples of years, named years. And those can be looked at, slides 315 to 319 can be looked at just fine by yourself without my comments. Tonight we're going to start on the star calendar on slide 320. And there's 474 slides in this series. So the star calendar takes all of the rest of them. And you'll be glad to know we're not going to do that. We're going to end this tutorial in 6 more sessions, counting tonight, and give you the basics of the star calendar, but which should only take 6 sessions. The reason there are so many slides is instead of just a few holy days in a year, every day has a star associated with it, and they all represent servants of God, and they're all pretty important. And I've got an awful lot of slides there, but it's more than for a beginning series. So with that in mind, slide number 320, the 364-day star calendar associates one star with each day of the year. The main divisions of the year are the 12 zodiac constellations. Now, this slide shows equally spaced constellations, which is the usual way to do it, but you'll see that Virgo is way more than her 30-degree slot, and Libra is only about half of one. And we're going to go to the next slide here. Well, we'll come back to that, but you'll see the lengths are different. The star calendar day is determined by the sun's position among the 12 zodiac constellations, even though it's invisible in the daylight. This is very much like astrology, where they say, where are you born? Oh, I'm a Cancer. That's supposed to mean that the sun was in the constellation of Cancer. The one slide we're looking at, 321, shows that in March, if you looked right at the sun and you could see the stars behind it, it would be in Pisces. And so in real life, the sun is in Pisces in March. If you're doing astrology, they'll call that Aries, and we'll talk about that. The stars move around, and Aries was 2,000 years ago. So astrology does its own thing, but this is the idea behind astrology, but not what they actually use. So you see that as the Earth goes around the sun appears to go through 12 different constellations, and those are called the zodiac constellations. And this line, which is exactly in the Earth's orbit, but it looks like the sun's orbit around the Earth, which people thought for many years. That line is called the ecliptic, and you're going to need to know that word. And it's the apparent path of the sun through the stars. Okay, slide 322 shows that here I show it. The zodiac divisions in the star calendar are the actual constellation lengths. They each begin on a Sunday. So this calendar is lined up with Sundays, just like the Enoch calendar is. The first day of every month is on a Sunday, just like the first day of every quarter is on a Sunday on the Enoch calendar. I say month, I'm talking now, I call them zodiac months. And they vary, so if they all start on a Sunday, they have all an exact number of weeks. The shortest is little Cancer here, just has 2 weeks. I'm pointing at Virgo. Cancer's over here, the crab. Virgo really has 3 weeks and it overlaps one. The crab really has only 2 weeks, and it doesn't overlap anybody. It goes right up between the twins and the lion very closely. Whereas the maiden has 7 full weeks. And then some constellations overlap. The biggest overlap down here is the waterman's hand left hand goes all the way over the back of the goat. And that's, anyway, that's a lot of overlap. There's really only, I guess there's only these two that overlap on the calendar. Next slide is 323. So on this this circle is, in fact, the ecliptic. The sun moves clockwise through the zodiac around the ecliptic circle. So it's just like a big clock. There's a hand of a clock. The sun is going around that circle, like I'm showing with the arrow. And it makes one cycle annually. The year, now I call it the year. The year begins, let's say the beginning point is the maiden. It's not technically the year anymore. And what I mean by that, well, we're going to show another, well, I think it's coming on another slide, but in case it's not, this 364 days is going to need an extra week added every once in a while, about every 5 years. And when it adds an extra week, it adds a whole constellation of 7 stars. And it turns out that just below the feet here and just below the head, right where you need it, there's a 7-star constellation called the Cup. So when those 7 stars are needed, there's 7 stars right there. So that constellation only shows up once in a while. Okay, the origin of this calendar is based on one described in the Book of Enoch. And we've talked about that before with the Enoch calendar, with each of 364 days named for a star representing a servant of God. Now, in the actual Enoch calendar, there's, I believe it's 7 and possibly 8 chapters that describe the Enoch calendar. There's only 2 or 3 verses that talk about a star calendar. It just says, oh, there's a star calendar. There's 12 leaders, 12 main leaders, and that's like the first star of each of the zodiac constellations. And there's 4 big ones, and we're going to talk about those. And they all represent servants of God, and that's about all it says. So everything else that's done on the star calendar, I've had to figure out, because he left the whole thing as an exercise for the student, and it's taken a few years. The Book of Enoch itself says an angel, now we're on 325, says an angel revealed the constellations to the prophet Enoch. So this is not the musing, these are not the whims of bored shepherds, these are revelations from God. So that requires some thought to absorb, because his revelations are filled with incredibly deep, amazing things. They were passed on by Noah to Abraham, to the Egyptians, who taught the Greeks, who preserved the exact location of each of the stars and the figures. So, for instance, in the fishes here, it'll say this is the mouth of the fish, this is the eye, this is the knot in the cord tying the tail. So each star position is pretty well preserved. However, as it went through different people's hands, sometimes they changed it because they didn't like how the picture looked. Fortunately, both Ptolemy and Hipparchus, 2 of the main astronomers whose work we have, we only have Ptolemy's work, but he talks about Hipparchus is the one that did the work, and Ptolemy used it and preserved it. But they'll say, this used to be here, but I moved it there because I thought it looked better. So at least they told us where it used to be. There's sometimes they don't tell you that, and it's had to be derived. They lost whole constellations. They did a lot. But in the work I've done, I've been able to tell the kinds of things they've changed. Okay, start 326. This answers a question that came up last week on how do I know what stars on what day? And because some of these, I'm going to tell you more than this star says, because I believe the slides that describe this are several, they might even be 100 slides from now. I don't think they're the next few. So the steps in between that you need to know first is one, you have to know what are the original constellations. Like the Greeks lost some of them, but the Persians didn't, and they all had, but excuse me, they all had a list of 48 constellations, but all meaning about 4 or 5: Babylonians, Arabs, Ptolemy, Persians. But they didn't agree on what the 48 were. They only disagreed on 3 or 4, and they're the dim ones. But they disagreed. So A, you got to know what are the constellations. B, I need to know exactly which stars are in the constellations. C, I need to know of those stars, which ones are represented in the star calendar. So you do all of that before you get to this slide. Now we know a star should be in the star calendar. How do we know what day it is? The first approximation I learned is what this slide says. Stars have what's called latitude and longitude along the path of the sun, the ecliptic. So it's very much like on the Earth. We have latitude and longitude. Longitude is going around the Earth. Latitude is going up toward the pole or down toward the South Pole for negative. So that shows it here. The red circle on slide 326 is longitude, and there's a starting point. You measure from, and you measure around to the point under the star, just like longitude on Earth, and then you measure up to the star 90 degrees up, and that's called the latitude. It's just like on Earth. And so that means the star day is the day when, excuse me, when this star is basically right over the sun. When the sun's going around this ecliptic, clockwise actually, and when the sun is right under this star, that's basically going to be the day it's on. It's really only approximately, and I'll even tell you the last step because it was discovered months after that first one, a year in fact after. The question came up on when do they know what kind of instruments did they have, and what if two stars are really, a 100th of a degree apart? How are they going to know which one's on what day? It's got to be more than that. And it was discovered that it's a very simple thing of following the dots. You can only be so far off, a few degrees off. But basically, now that you know the stars in the picture, and one of the rules on what stars are in the picture is it has to draw a nice stick figure. Well, the reason it has to draw a nice stick figure is because you're actually going to draw that and connect the dots. And connecting the dots is the order of the stars. It's amazing. And so this is done to be simple for the man on the street. Okay, that was a long slide, but that covered about 2 years of research, so it was worth it. Now the slide 327. These are the northern constellations, all in the 48. The circle is the ecliptic, so there's the ecliptic path of the sun is the outside circle here, as we saw before. And it is earthly, meaning it is earthly means it represents the earth, actually, and being on the earth. The 12 zodiac figures represents things on earth, while celestial beings are toward the center. So the celestial kingdom is really represented by these stars in the center. And this, by the way, is centered, well, you can see what it's centered on. The circle is the ecliptic. And this center is called the North Ecliptic Pole. These are the northern constellations. And outside of this, down in the southern, is mostly water, and under the ground in the nether world, and it's mostly evil creatures, sea monsters, sea serpents. Okay, now we go to slide 328. There were 4 royal stars known as the 4 corners of the earth. See, the earth is the ecliptic. And so these stars are Regulus in the heart of the lion, Antares in the heart of the scorpion, Fomalhaut, which means the head. Haut is the head, and the foam is the fish, I think. So it's the head of the fish. This down here, it doesn't show it. The fish is down in the underworld. But the fish actually represents paradise down in the underworld. And the stream is blessings. And the star Fomalhaut is both in the stream and in the fish. That's another point. Some stars get 2 days because they're in 2 constellations, and this is one of them. So I've known those stars forever. They're called the 4 royal stars. That's well known. That was not discovered by me. And it's also well known that they're in pairs. They're very much straight across from each other. I think if you look at Aldebaran and Antares, and you draw a line through there, they're within a half a degree of being straight across the circle from each other. These are shown in red to indicate they are major holy days. Oh yes, they have Greek letters. I have the Greek letters up here in the words. Alpha Leonis, or just Alpha Leo, Alpha Skull, they're all alphas. Alpha is usually, it's the first letter of the Greek alphabet, and it's usually given to the brightest star. So all of you should learn the Greek alphabet. I've got in my articles, I've got pictures, tables of the Greek alphabet. I try to write them out ALP for if you don't know the Latin letter, the Greek letters. But that's how they're designated. So it'll be the letter will say which star it is, and then the 3-letter abbreviation is for the constellation. So Aldebaran, here in the bull, the eye of the bull, representing the seer, is Alpha in Taurus, the bull. Okay, so that's the major holy days, and I've already said the rest of those words. 329 is, this is a line straight out of the book of Enoch, chapter 40, verse 9. Oh, he talks about the angels. He's not talking about star calendar here. He has a lot of description of the angels, their 7 names, what their jobs are. He talks a lot about the 7 angels, and I've got about 4 papers on the 7 angels. So Enoch is asking Raphael, who are the angels of the 4 sides? And the answer is the first is Michael, the second is Raphael, the third is Gabriel, and the 4th is Phanuel. Now, most people don't think Phanuel is the 4th one. That's why I put the quote in here. It's usually Uriel, they think, and there's a reason they think that, and that's fine. Those are 4 important angels that have other jobs, but the 4 on the 4 sides are these 4. And they represent, now we have already been told, they're going to represent servants of God. These are the 4 brightest ones, and they're going to be the 4 main ones of the 7 angels. So the heart of the lion, Regulus, of the king is Adam. And see, these are in order. The first is Michael. There it is. First is Michael. Second is Raphael. So they actually go around the circle in order. Usually the Lord in scriptures does things in order. That is Antares, the heart of wisdom. This is the heart of the king, but it's it's more the emotional heart. And it's fiery. This is the king when he's killing. The sea serpent's head is right here. And in the last days, he kills the sea serpent's head. And he actually does it by fire. Whereas this heart is wisdom. This is a judge. When it represents, the ones on earth, the serpent people, can either be God or Satan. So the Draco in the center can be God or Satan. The judge can be Lord doing judgment, or it can be Satan executing it. In this case, it's the Lord, and it's the heart of wisdom. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. The serpent is one of the wisest of all animals, it turns out, if you know what wisdom is. The head of the southern fish is knowledge. See, it's in the head. This time I got the fish in there. Because the star in the fish is the head, but it's also in the stream, but it's knowledge, and that's Noah. And then the fourth one is Aldebaran, the eye of the seer. I'm spending this much time on this because they really are the four big ones. And when I started, they were the only four that I knew for sure who they were. And I've only identified a few other men. So Michael, and now this is a quote from Enoch 20. It should be a colon here, Enoch 20, verse 40. No, I think that's correct, semicolon. It's Enoch chapter 20 and Enoch chapter 40, I believe. I'll have to double check that. Michael, who is Adam, presides over the nations. This is in the book of Enoch. That's like king. Raphael presides over suffering. He is the healer. Hermes is the one that goes around with the staff with his caduceus, the serpent around the staff. And if you look at the person stepping on the scorpion here, he has a serpent wrapped around him. He represents the healer. Gabriel, Noah, is over paradise. It says he's over paradise. It is. He's pouring the fish into the fish in paradise. And Phanuel, paradise, of course, is the highest part of the spirit world, the good guy part. And Phanuel, who is Joseph Smith, Joseph the seer, is over hope. Boy, now I just have to spend a little time on this slide. We're already 25 minutes, and we're going to change the format a little bit. I'm going to go a little longer than the 25 minutes. And I'm going to do the 30 on the class, and then only 10 for questions, because we're limited by Zoom to a 40-minute meeting now. Oh, I started a little early, so we'll be a little short on questions, but this is very important material. The quote from John Taylor, where he says, Joseph Smith has done more than anybody save the Savior for the salvation of mankind. And when I read that, I thought, well, what about Michael? What about Noah? Well, they're doing other stuff. They're not on salvation. Michael's over at nations. Each of these has a job. Gabriel is over paradise. Joseph is the one over hope. And if you read it longer, the hope and salvation of all mankind. That's what Joseph's job, Phanuel's job is. And he has done more. Look at what he's done. All of those scriptures, all of the ordinances. He's done more, all the work for the dead. He's done more for the salvation. John Taylor was right, I believe. And it's because it's his job. Okay, a couple more slides here. Days of the star calendar are numbered sequentially, like 1 Virgo, 2 Virgo, up to 47 weeks is 49 Virgo. Then 1 Libra, 2 Libra, and then all the way around until 41 Leo. 42 Leo is the last one. See, 6 weeks long. This shows you how many weeks long each is. Oh yeah, there's an overlap here. There's 3 that overlap. 1, 2, 3. That's interesting. I only saw 2 before, but there's 3. That's it. This is an important one. They're all important. The first day of each constellation is a minor holy day. And in the overlap, now this is my best understanding right now, but every star is only in one constellation or the other. And so you'll have things happen like 14 Libra, and then 1 skull and 2 skull, and then 17. See, it's 14, 15, 16, 17. It keeps counting sequentially. And so the one after this might be 4 skull, 2, 3, 4, or it could be 18 Libra. So it's really tricky. That's how it seems to work. Okay, I'm going to stop at a good stopping place. The uniform star calendar, you already know uniform calendars only, they never have a leap year. So they always have 364 days. Whereas the star does add, we talked about this, 7 extra days after Leo, and I've told you it's in the constellation of the Cup. Okay, you know that, let's stop there. We will start, this is on precession, and that's a new subject. So we'll start on 332 next time. So I will now, I think everybody's microphone's on, and I'm not good at turning them off or anything yet. It looks like there's still just the 4 of us here, or maybe 3 of us. I'm open for questions. Somebody say something just to know I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jacob's Ladder article is very interesting.
Yes, and I can comment on that. First of all, is there any question on what we covered tonight? And then I can go off to anywhere.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Oh, yeah, hey, we got a gift from the people. They've removed the 40-minute time limit on our first group meeting. I will click the love it button. Thank you. Thank you, Zoom. All right, well, we can go on all night now. No, we'll just go a little bit past. Okay, so well, I'll comment on that article. That has some huge new information in it.
Yeah, it does.
I did not expect the new information. I'll tell you what it was supposed to be briefly, and then I'll tell you what happened. It was supposed to be that there was an article before where I noticed that the holy days on both, first of all, the holy days on Enoch and Hebrew calendar are basically identical. They all have 12 months, and they have a feast of trumpets and of tabernacles and the Day of Atonement, and on the same days of the same months. So that was a no-brainer kind of a thing. Even though none of that's mentioned in the book of Enoch, it still is there. And remember, in Enoch's day, they didn't have all of those holy days that I know of. That's not, I mean, he's a long time ago. He's before the flood even, let alone Abraham. So with that in mind, at some point I discovered that there's about 25 to 30 holy days on the Hebrew calendar. 20 of those in the same order match the 20 days of the Viantina, which are the 20 day glyphs in the sacred realm, the 20 little pictures. They all have symbolic meanings, and the 20 holy days on Enoch and Hebrew match in the same order. That's, if you still know anything about probability, to get stuff, to roll 1 through 6 in order on one dice is, 1/6 times, to the 6th power. It gets really hard to roll it 20 of them in order. It's just not going to happen by chance. So that means that's all been planned out. Then I felt to do this article on the lunar mansions, and I didn't know, I only had one reason to do it. All of the ancient people, not all, the Babylonians, the Greeks, And the Arabs, those three, all had a list of 28 stars that they called lunar mansions. It takes 27 and a third days for the moon to go around through the stars, not through its phases, but come back to the same star. It's 29 and a half for the phases. And so 28 is a great number. And so those stars mark the positions of the moon every day. Every month it goes through those 28, those stars. So that's kind of cool for an astronomer. They all agreed there were 28. They did not agree on the stars. But what's that all about? Well, as I do my sacred calendars, those stars are holy days. All these sacred events, people's births, everything's happening on these lunar mansion days. So God is using those. And those people were preserving something. So I wrote a paper just to say, hey, these are my best shot at looking at all of their lists and everything I know. Here's my best shot at what those 28 stars are. And as I was writing that paper, I always pray to know if there's anything more. And these amazing things come when I think the paper's done. And what came was, you ought to look at those 28 stars and see if 20 of those match up the 20 of the 20 day glyphs. And sure enough, the same ones in the same order. Sometimes the pictures are the same. Like there's the scorpion stinger is on the day of the skull. And water is on the day of water. I mean, we're talking, they're the same. And so that was amazing. So now I wrote a paper just to review that and to say, you know, this is pretty interesting stuff. And I needed a paper to combine. I really only nailed down the 28 lunar mansions. I think it was October of last year. So I thought I need a paper that combines the information from all three sources. The Viantina, I'm counting Enoch and Hebrew as one, and then the lunar mansions. And so I did that, and I learned some things and actually changed a couple of star names because it's obvious what they should be. And then again I prayed, is there anything else? And my little voice I follow said, well, you might just want to look. Oh, there was one new thing in the paper. Got to tell you that. The one new thing in the paper was I had been confused on the 20 of the Viantina, the 20-day glyphs. There was something different about the last 7. The first 13 take you from conception through resurrection. The last 7, the Mayan priests just had these really sketchy words, you know, you can gain enlightenment and you shake off the ashes of materialism. And they're all, he's purposely being vague or he doesn't know either. But the last 7 were different. And I had been thinking for years that they were probably ordinances, like baptism went with the water and things like that. But when I tried the 7 ordinances, nothing really worked. And so I have been stumped. In this paper, it came out that the 7 things are the 7 steps. Oh, all of these are steps. I should have started out saying that. First to that. Jacob's ladder, there are steps up to heaven and down. The Mayan priests said that there are 7 steps down the ladder to earth, down actually to hell, and then there's 7 steps up from hell up to heaven. 10 down and 10 up. Okay? Now, other people talk about 7 steps, but they both use the symbolism of ladders and steps. So that was the purpose of the paper, to compare them, to see if they fit, and they really did. Okay, with that in mind, the first, actually 13 steps, 7 to 10 down and 3 up, all are things the person can do by themselves. They might have help, but they have to choose to be righteous. They have to choose to do this. They die, but they die by themselves. The first step up the ladder is accepting the gospel and accepting Jesus Christ. And the third step is being resurrected. And you know, all people are going to resurrect, the scriptures say. So everybody does that thanks to Christ. So, okay, the upper 7 are all service. Once you've gotten to the point of resurrection, to a certain point on the ladder, from then on, the steps represent helping other people. They're not for yourself. They're helping others. That became clear. Then they all fell into line. So when I prayed to say, is there anything else that ought to be in there? The little voice said, well, you got the 7 servants. You might want to compare those to the 7 angels and what their jobs are. And I go, oh my goodness, that's never, well, and I say never occurred to me. I'd only known for one day that they were, what the steps were. It only took 10 minutes to connect up the angels with the steps. And that's in the paper, and it's in section 4, and I'll let you look at that yourselves. But here's even a bigger thing that came, and I've got a paragraph on that, and then we're going to end. We're still going to end in the 40, but I'm looking at is about 40 minutes. So this is the only question today. But there's been a question all along on those 7 angels. There's a lot of really amazing men in history. There's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're not, none of them are one of the angels. Everybody thinks Abraham should be. He's not. John the Baptist, Jesus said, greatest prophet born of woman. He's not one. So it's not the top people. And Abel is one, and we don't know much about him, and he's one of the 7. Here's another new thing that came, and I'm pretty confident on this. There's different sports where they have different levels of players, A players, B players, C players. And you watch a C player championship, and it can be every bit as exciting as an A player championship. They're not on the same level, but they're playing their hearts out, and they're giving it everything they've got. I cheered harder. Well, that doesn't matter. My personal things doesn't. But so I believe these 7 are like A players, B players down to F, or C is it G down, E is 5, 6, G players, I guess. There's 7 different levels of players, but they can all do the job that needs to be done. And it's surprising which one's doing what job. A lot of people do jobs below what they could do. Anyway, I'm just saying that's what I understand now about the 7 angels. They're not the 7 most amazing. There are 7 that are good at what they're good at, and they play well at their level. They're like the champions at their level. They're best of class. Okay, we're basically out of time. So I'm going to sign off there. We'll start on the next slide next time. And we have a class next week, but then we skip Father's Day. So there you go. All righty. I'll sign off. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.